Defining Terrorism, Chapter 1. Bomb blast in Mumbai, 15 dead, 68 injured. From USA to Norway and Afghanistan to India, it all looks same. But does it?
Well, defining terrorism is not very simple. Various interpretations and definitions of terrorism have come up in recent times. States have generally focused on talking of terrorism in terms of acts of violence and deaths of innocents at the hands of non-state actors. In popular parlance, in some regions and in some circles, such acts of terror are legitimized as acts of political campaign.
But LTTE, ULFA, IRA and the Kashmiri militants who have been labelled as terrorists in their respective countries are regarded as freedom fighters amongst a section of people in the same areas.
Yes, you are right. The case of Sardar Bhagat Singh is equally interesting. While he was dubbed as a terrorist by the British, he is looked up by Indians as one of the greatest revolutionaries and a freedom fighter.
As such, terrorism may be understood as an act of violence against unarmed civilians as a means of bargaining politically over specific demands or making a general statement. It should be irrelevant whether the perpetrators are state parties or non-state parties, and other characteristics like skin color, ethnicity, gender, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, disability, social origin or anything else of the perpetrators or the victims should likewise be irrelevant. While such groups have wreaked havoc, even the elected governments have resorted to such violence.
Statist definitions of terrorism portray terrorism to cover sedition, conspiracy, killing, murder, arson, explosions, and public disorder to undermine the state, twist due process of evidentiary norms against the individual, and prescribe heavy punishment. Political terrorism abjures the state's definition and seeks to define terrorism as political freedom, struggle to support the claims of justice and self-determination with no holds barred.
So, even a state can be called as terrorist.
Yes, accordingly, governments formulate harsh laws and try to go overboard in their response to the extent of punishing the innocents. In the process, we see the war of terror, POTA, armed forces acts, etc. Oh, then how do we understand terrorism? Generally, people in powers have skipped giving the definition of terrorism. They have mainly talked about acts of terror. Can we say that terrorism is an act of violence against unarmed civilians as a means of bargaining politically over specific demands or making a general statement?
A people's definition of terrorism draws from the experience of civilian populations. Yes, you are right. Post-World War II, terrorism against the people acquired a new dimension when America bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. And later, carpet-bombed Vietnam with napalm. The experience of Afghanistan and Iraq is no different. Neither is that of Israel's attack on Gaza and Lebanon. I think the war on terror has some hidden agenda.
Tell me, Professor Investig, what is this war of terror which is being talked about so often?
Compared to the decades of 1960s to 1980s, the air is thick now with fear and intimidation. Values of humanism are being forced to take the back seat, while the powers that be are keener to bolster their powers by over-projecting the fear of terrorism. The global and local war on terror is a construct which is contradictory in terms. Terrorist outfits are not a legal entity, so how can one talk of a war with them? This talk defies all logic and imagination. Then what about the term terror? Also, the term terror is an abstract one. So the whole construct is a sort of symbolism for a politics aimed against the countries where oil resources are located and against groups with Muslim identity. What about Christian groups? Not to be left out, there are Christian and Hindu militants who are active in India's northeast. Worldwide, the Irish Republican Army militants belong to Christianity. Again, the ones who bombed Jerusalem's King David Hotel, then headquarters of the British government in Palestine in July 1946, were Jews. In US, the Oklahoma bomber, namely Timothy McVeigh, was a Christian. In Norway, a Christian Anders Behring Breivik's act of terror killed 93 people. Why do people resort to violence? Wherever dissatisfaction with policies goes beyond a particular level, some people do resort to violence in order to achieve their supposed goal. As such, this phenomena is not related to any particular religion. So many organizations doing terror acts: the National Democratic Front of Bodoland, All Tripura Tiger Force, the Japanese Red Army, Lord's Salvation Army, Spain's ETA, France's Corsican terrorists, Israel's Kash and Kahane Shal are some more examples of organizations scattered in different parts of the world which resort to terror tactics for their political goals. None of the above mentioned has anything to do with Islam. The official reports on these incidents had serious holes.
But since there can be no independent verification by citizens' committees, it is difficult to doubt or believe some of these stories.
Surely Muslims are also involved in some cases.
All said and done, there are cases where Muslims are involved, and consequently organizations like Al-Qaeda, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have become household names. But interestingly, there are many other organizations using violence, but they are not much taken note of.
There may be others too.
One such major organization was Sri Lanka's Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, Litte, the majority of whose members were Hindus. One member of this group, Dhanu, strapped a bomb over her waist and killed former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi.
Similarly, not very long ago, Khalistan movement was a major force resorting to terror in the state of Punjab.